Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. Today I want to talk to you about masterpiece collector hate. A lot of these collectors hate on these companies that make the stuff that we love, and it's funny too. But I'm going to talk about the three big companies and how different collectors hate on them, whether it be Takara or Fanstoys or X-Transbots. But then I'm also going to talk about one company that never seems to get any hate. And I'm going to give you the reasons why I think that company never gets hate. But we're going to discuss this, and we've already talked about some stuff with Fanstoys, but there's more stuff with Fanstoys, oddly enough. And Fanstoys is more or less on the top. But we'll get into all this coming up. I'm going to start out talking about Takara, and you know, the funny thing is that in the early days of collecting, nobody really bashed Takara. Nobody talked negative about Takara. And even in my mind, I thought, well, I didn't like the scaling down from 12-inch to 9-inch, and I wish that they would have put more die-cast in it. And, you know, I guess that was the stuff people were saying back then. But they weren't hating on them. They weren't bad. They were like, hey, I'd like to see it improve. I'd like to see it kind of incorporate what happened with MPO1. But it seemed like every release was celebrated. Like everyone was, even if there was a problem with it or some issue with it, they still celebrated every single release. The community was excited and happy for it. I didn't see the level of hatred or people being upset about any of these figures that get released. But then again, I think they might have had less problems back then. Not for every release, but for the vast majority of them. They were a little bit more simplistic back then too. So one of the things that garners a negative light, a negative response from collectors when it comes to Takara is the price. And for a while there, it was only high priced because it was Japanese imports for them. And then when they were brought over from Hasbro for US retailers such as Toys R Us, such as Walmart's, and there were some other places that ended up having some. But when Hasbro did that, they were way cheaper, almost a quarter of the price as importing them. And so it was really a good deal at the time, and of course that was a good reason to celebrate it. But then of course later on down the road they kind of stopped doing that, and then prices like this MP44 became $450. Nowadays it kind of seems like Takara's listening to the fans, or they're just having to redo how they operate so that they can continue to operate, and that is putting out this MP44 toy version, this recolor with less stuff, no trailer, but for a $200 price point instead of the $450, so that they can actually put this thing back out and people will buy it. And I like that. I think that that's coming along in the right direction. But it is one of the points that a lot of people hate about Takara is the price. I think they're fixing it. I think we're getting more of a value out of it, but it's still something that stings from people from past purchases. The other thing is the quality drop. Now, we used to look at Takara and say they were the best quality, and I still think stuff like this Hound, I still think this is the best Hound out there. I mean, if you put it next to the Fanstoys one, this still looks better than Fanstoys. And so that kind of, this is going to lead into another one too. But a lot of people had breakage on this, and I think that it might have been a materials issue. They did sort of, I think, somewhere along the line blame the fact that they used a different factory in a different country or something along those lines, a Vietnam factory. I don't remember the whole scenario and situation with that, but I do know that this was problematic. The KO came along, maybe they used better materials, but I had no problems with my KO, and so I gotta say it felt a whole lot better than the original. And that's kind of a shift. It used to be that the original was more solid than the KO. We're seeing KOs kind of flip that script these days, but this was a huge point of contention for collectors, and a lot of collectors were upset about it. And that gets into the return policy. It's really hard to return these. You can return it to your retailer, but then you just do without, because usually by the time you get it and you transform it and something's wrong with it, there's no replacements. So the other complaint people have and why they hate on Takara is the lack of die-cast and the design. So I think it kind of goes hand in hand. Like, they redesign them, they design them to not have, they don't have die-cast in them at all, and that's part of the design process. Like, this piece should be made of die-cast. This piece could be reinforced as a die-cast part. So give it weight and heft and all of that. So I know that I would prefer more diecast in my figures. I would like Takara to go back to that, but it's one of the things that we see with Fanstoys and X-Transbots. They have a heftier, weightier figure. When you're spending $100, $200, $300 on a figure and it's really light, it doesn't really feel like it's got the value. And I know diecast doesn't equal higher quality, but it does feel like higher quality. And it's one of those things also that, yes, it has to be painted. But now that they're pretty much painting everything and every surface, why not? And that gets into the design. With the design of it, a lot of collectors that already have, say, a Fanstoys will hate on the newer version from Takara, which it seems kind of odd now that we're getting into new territory where Takara's putting a figure out that other companies have already made, which in the past it was Takara made a figure, and then with that, they set a gold standard that nobody else could beat. And this one here, I liked it. I liked this Skyfire, but a lot of people try to say that they like the Fanstoys better. And so it's one of those things because they're really going for two different aesthetics. This is going for a hyper cartoon look, and then the Fanstoys one is going for more of a beefier look. It's looking more of a heroic proportion, but with that, a lot of collectors didn't even want to give this time of day or even check it out because of the fact that they didn't like the look of the design and they preferred the Fanstoys. So when you talk about Fanstoys, and we are about to right now, the big complaint is price. I know a lot of people the most often complain about the price on this, and I'm going to point this one out. I think this is the greatest example of Fanstoys in a nutshell, but the Terminus Giganticus came out and it would have been something really expensive, like $450 or something along those lines, and people were really complaining about the price. It came out in two different sets and it would have been really expensive, $200 and $250 or something, but they ended up dropping the price when DX9 came out with theirs, and DX9s came out at about half the price of what Fanstoys was charging. So Fanstoys lowered the price a bit to be competitive by like $100 between the two sets, so $50 a set. And with that, that kind of showed that there was some room in there, some play in there, and they were overcharging. And that is a big complaint. They did that during the pandemic. They upped their prices, and a lot of people say, well, no, it wasn't Fanstoys. It was everybody else involved. The distributors did that, not Fanstoys at all. It was the shipping costs and all this other things. But at the end of the day, the price complaint from Fanstoys, that's why people are hating on Fanstoys a lot, because of the price. Now, unlike Takara, who will put out a pre-order for a figure, they'll give you a date, and they'll hit that date within a week or two, and that's not a big deal with Takara. But when it comes to Fanstoys, because A, they don't have the same channel power that Takara does, and B, they are a smaller group of people that are making these things, they usually do not hit any sort of timeline. They are lately. They are, like they say, what's coming next, and this is coming next, and this is coming next. But it's not like we know exactly what date things are coming. But we saw this thing a decade ago, and then now we finally got this acoustic wave, which is a great figure. I love it. But people have other characters, like the Combiners, kind of like their Blitzwing, and they're really kind of upset that they have to wait so long for these figures. And there's not even like a concrete update. Like, you're just left in the wind for a decade. And no one's saying, okay, well, this is the date this is going to come. When it came to this Berserk, or whatever they're going to be calling it, Berserk or Blitzkrieg is another name they were calling it. But when this one, they actually told retailers to take pre-orders down and then put them back up at a higher price. So that's double complaints. That's like the two biggest complaints about Fanstoys were involving this character again. And it's frustrating, and I understand it, but, you know, they are the best. They are one of the best. So the next thing is actually very much so related to their long timeline, and that is the bully tactics. When X-Transbots was coming out with their Ultra Magnus, Fanstoys dropped these digital renders and sort of kind of blocked what was X-Transbots release that week. And so that's a bully tactic, and it really is kind of hurts people. It hurts the collectors that are only Fanstoys fanboy collectors, because they're like, well, I was going to get in on the X-Transbots one because it looks so good, but now I'm going to wait for the Fanstoys. I'm going to wait 5 or 7 years for the Fanstoys. We don't know when this thing's going to come out, and it's not even under the Fanstoys name. It's the Fantastic Model Marge, and so we have no idea how long this is going to take, but it's a bully tactic. They've done it in the past. They've done it a lot, and I think they're kind of letting up off of it, but this is still a relatively recent bully tactic they pulled off, and a lot of people garner hate towards Fanstoys because of the bully tactics that they use. And it's like, well, I was gonna get the X-Transbots one. Now it's sold out, and I have no Fanstoys one, and I don't know what year or decade it'll come out. Now I'm starting to hear some negative rumblings about the most recent release, the Warthog, and we know that the next one that's coming is going to be Pipes. Is it Pipes that's coming next? I think Pipes is coming next. Anyhow, this Power Glide of theirs, I'm hearing it's having some QC issues, and I'm hearing that the transformation is not fun at all. And so, I don't really look at any Masterpiece transformation and go, I'm going to have a good time with it. But when people say it's not fun at all, it sounds like it's just going to be like a headache or a toothache of a transformation. But I don't know. I haven't even watched a video about it yet. I'm going to wait till I get mine in and see and what I think about it. But with it, it really is one of those things. Fanstoys has set such a high bar on their process for manufacturing and their QC that people are used to getting a solid figure that doesn't have issues. This one's has some sort of issue with the rear end of the bot. I'm not 100% sure exactly what's going on with that. Of course, I don't have mine in hand, so it's really hard for me to really talk about it intelligently, but I'm hearing there are some issues with a lot of people's. And so with that, that's a negative. That's sad. I really want Fanstoys to do well, and I don't want them to have these QC issues, but I will give it to Fanstoys. Their service after the sale is tremendous, and they always send you out the part that you need, and they take care of it. It just takes a long time to get it in the mail. Now we're getting on to X-Transbots. Why do people hate on X-Transbots so much? Well, X-Transbots has had some shoddy issues in the past. And I'm not going to lie, I love X-Transbots figures. I love the vast majority of them. They do give you some of the best looking figures in both modes. But Fuzz was a nightmare of a transformation, and I still don't think mine's transformed right, and I don't care enough to mess with it. I mean, I spent a long time messing with that thing. And it's just somehow the forearms and shoulders and stuff aren't aligned just right, even though they look exactly perfect. But, you know, that's just one issue. I didn't break anything. I don't know if people were breaking their Fuzz. They just couldn't get it aligned just right. But then you've got other issues. And I'm going to tell you what I think the real issue is with X-Transbots. People say that it's quality. People say that it's the materials. I think it's way over-engineered. And when you way over-engineer your stuff, like they did with their Minosaur, with their trailer, so that they could achieve both modes, multiple modes here, that I thought was very unnecessary. But when you way over-engineer it, you end up making a lot of parts really thin, really small, and there's a lot of parts of the transformation that have to kind of bend past each other, that don't flow just right. That's frustrating to collectors and results in breakage. So there's a lot of breakage that comes with these designs. They look beautiful in all modes, but it's frustrating. Now we got their lock figure, and a lot of people were mad at X-Transbots over this. And a lot of people, this is what was like the defining line where they quit X-Transbots, and they don't trust X-Transbots after this figure. Now, I'm not mad at it at all. I got a free 2.0 version out of this. I got mine, and I saw the issues mine had, and of course I contacted Show Z. It was no big deal. I got my free one when the 2.0 came out. Had to pay shipping though. But the weird thing about it is that X-Transbots stepped up on this. They pulled all the product off the market. And then they put out the 2.0. They replaced everybody who had a faulty one from 1.0 that wanted it replaced. And then they came forward with a better figure. I did a video on all that, and the better figure actually did the transformation right. But people say it shouldn't have happened in the first place. But these are complex transformers, and I think that they did the best they could. And the 2.0 is fine, in my opinion. People are bashing this figure, and I really do like this Overdrive, the Fioravante, and I'm so excited for X-Transbots and what's going forward and what they're doing. And mine is solid. Like, if you watch my review of this guy, mid-transformation, parts are all everywhere, and I lifted it up, and the whole thing, nothing flopped on it at all. You got the arms all transformed out, legs transformed out. Nothing is flopping on this thing. It's all holding tight. So I was quite impressed with that, how tightly toleranced it was, and I didn't really have much trouble. There are some goofy aspects of it, like bending, trying to get the foot out and all that kind of stuff, but still, I thought it was a pretty good Transformer. So I look forward to the other two Omnibots come with this. I also look forward to the Punch and the Counter Punch that are coming, because those are great looking figures. And so when you get into this, you start to think that X-Transbots does a lot of great things, but yet people still hate on them because they've had a shoddy past. But I think that they try to do better with each release. And even when it comes to something like their Ultra Magnus, it had a screw that backed out or something if you turn an arm too much. But I got the 2.0, and the 2.0 was released cheaper, like $50 cheaper than the first one, and they fixed that. So I'm going to tell you that you're making these complex Transformers, and if one issue pops up, everyone hates the whole figure. But I feel like they did right by this one. Okay, so the last company I'm going to talk about is MMC, and I never really hear anybody hate this company. I hear people say, "Oh, that looks cool, but it's not Super G1 or anything. It's not for me." But I never hear people just, "I'm never going to buy anything MMC. I can't stand MMC. I hate it." I never hear that. I hear people say, "Oh, that's a nice looking RC. She's just not quite as G1 as I'd like," or something along those lines. Or maybe they're a little shorter. They're a little smaller sometimes. But when the MMC ones, I just never hear anybody complain about the company. And I think that the reason why is because they make good figures that don't generally break. They generally don't have huge issues, and they're not too expensive. I mean, these are bigger cassettes, and the bigger cassettes are going to cost more than the smaller cassettes. And so maybe some people complain about the price of the cassettes because they're used to how much other cassettes that are half the price cost. But I do like the fact that they are making cassettes. I like the fact they make some stuff that nobody else makes. And so MMC, I think, does a pretty good job. And a lot of people like MMC, but they don't put a whole lot of product out. And they do kind of stay in their own lane. And they are a little bit stylized with most of theirs. But I really think that most people that get an MMC figure are happy with it. And for the most part, they do a great job. Some of their designs are really ancient. They are old designs, and so other companies come along and made more G1 accurate versions, but some still to this date hold up as the best representation of a character, just like this Skylynx. So the goal of this video was not to be negative at all, but to say that there are reasons that people are upset or disappointed in every single company. But for the most part, there's really no reason to have any hate towards any of these companies, because I think that you should look at each release on the standing merit alone. But again, you're going to have people that are 100% Takara official only. You're going to have people that are Fanstoys fanboys only. And this whole situation of hating all these other companies, well, it's never going to go away. It's part of the community. And with that, I like them all, and I let each release stand on its own merit. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. I want to hear your feedback, how you feel about this situation. Like and subscribe, and Tydirium Hanger out.